Okay, well, today we're unfortunately under the hood on our Husqvarna backpack chainsaw, the 535 FBX, which I've filmed and had found great use in silviculture on my YouTube channel. But last week I was out sawing, and all of a sudden, the idle setting, when I was not trying to cut something, the blade was actually engaged and running at idle, and anytime you touch the blade to anything, the saw would stall. So that's a classic sign of what? A clutch, a centrifugal clutch that's not working, that's engaging when it shouldn't be at idle. And of course, that in a chainsaw, that means usually that there's a broken spring, right? There's two springs in your Huskies. Very simple job, actually, to fix that. So I dismantled my saw here. The first thing you need to do is take off this cover, right? This metal cover, which essentially is a big bracket that attaches the saw from the harness to the motor and the shaft. The shaft comes, you see, comes out of this bracket. So that comes off with you're using here this I think it's a 4mm hex tool that comes with the saw. There's all kinds of bolts on this unit that this fits. So you actually want to carry this with you. There are things that will come loose on you. So this also was used to dismantle it. So that comes off, and then there is a cover right here that is also taken off with the same hex head cap screws, thusly, right? Do I have it upside down? Maybe. And then you have, that gives you access to your clutch. This is a bit different than a chainsaw. You can actually see down in where the nut is there on that's the attaching the whole mechanism, the drive mechanism to the motor, the broken part of the spring. The spring itself, a new one, is right here. You can see the part number if you want. I went down to the Husqvarna dealer in Bangor thinking, well, this is just in all kinds of string trimmers and everything. They probably have 5 of them in the parts bin. The guy looked it up and says, I haven't sold one of these in 10 years. What is this for? So that was, I had to explain at that point, but that was the end of the conversation. So we went to our good old friend, Reassembled, and 3 days later, and $7 per spring. I actually ordered 2. That's why you're seeing the spring out of the package and a unopened package here. Figuring, you know, if it breaks once, it may break again someday, and I've been out of business here when I really want to get some work done for a week. So and I have a new spring. We're going to pull out, let's see, reach in there with the needle nose pliers and pull out, see if we can get that out of there. Yeah, purchase on it here. There's the broken spring. Then the spring, here are your 2 parts of the clutch. The spring basically just goes in between those. We'll hook them in, and then they will get bolted on here, thusly. This plate covers those. Those screws actually are precisely 4mm. My wrench I just showed you was a little bit sloppy, and I didn't want to round these off, right? So I actually got out a hex head tool, like a precise, you know, an actual Allen wrench in my little handy dandy metric kit here, 4mm, and that did the job. So that pulled them right out. So be a little leery if you get to this point when you take this clutch off. Make sure this tool is a tight fit. So I'm going to stop now, and we'll try to reassemble this and then see what happens. Okay, here is the clutch assembled with the spring between the 2 drums or whatever they're called. I found that I needed to use, I had to dredge out my old, I guess these are snap ring pliers, so they're pliers that pry outward, and when you put that spring in there, you need to put these in one end of this clutch and pry it apart thusly once the spring is hooked into the holes. Now we just take this, put it here, nestles right in there, And we put our plate back on. Like this. And we'll tighten that with the hex head screw. Okay. I'll finish that and come back. One more detail here. Just like when you replace this, when you pull your clutch on a chainsaw, you need to pull the spark plug and then insert either just a dowel in there or with a rag or whatever, or if you have one of these special spark plug replacement tools, you just screw that in, and this end keeps the piston from reaching top dead center, so you can then turn on the crankshaft of the motor, right? So that's, you'll need something like that. Otherwise, when you go to remove these two screws, which I now have installed, the whole motor will just spin. Okay, now I replaced the cover here properly. I've got it down, and then I can tell by spinning this that the clutch is engaged. There's really just 3 hex head bolts that hold this on. You do have to tuck, I guess must be the ignition wire, into this little slot once you get the cover in place, and then we'll tighten these 3 bolts down. Okay, so I put the motor back in this bracket. That really is pretty easy. You have to make sure that the thread the square shaft that's in here into the square socket, which is coming out of the motor, right? So you slide that on, and there are 5 bolts, 2 shorter coarse threaded ones that go in the top here, and then down here there are 3 more which go in there. So all's going well here. We'll see. We put these back on, and I think we're good to go. I will say that it might be easier. I did not do this, but if you unbolt I don't know if you can even see this, but down under here there's a 16 millimeter bolt right there that you access from the bottom. You can't get a socket on it, so I couldn't find my 16 millimeter wrench. I had every other size, but not the one I needed. So taking this off will remove it from the harness, and then you have a better maneuverability. This is a little awkward, but you know, we're getting it done. I actually ended up clamping the wand here over to my drill press, or my bandsaw rather, across the shop. So anyway, we'll put these back in with our 4 millimeter socket driver, and we'll see what happens. Okay, here you see this is the last bolt. I had to grind my tool off a little bit because the end got rounded over slightly, so I just ground it back. You got plenty to work with there. That is the last hex head screw. Tightened her up. Just 5. 1, 2, 3 on the bottom, 2 on the top, and we should be good to go. Everything seems to have gone back together easily, actually. So this may be the last you hear from me on this, if everything works. If not, you might be back to it. Okay, so we're troubleshooting here. We've assembled it, and it was still stuck. So I discovered, having looked at the diagram from eReplacementParts of these parts, that part 17, this part right here, see how this sticks down? Where it sticks out needs to go into the clutch, right? Here's your clutch chamber. So when I put it together before, I had it this way, sticking where these were sticking up. They need to go down into the clutch like that, right? And then put your bolts in and assemble it. Hopefully this will work. You notice I also, since I had to take it back apart, I did dismount it from the harness with because I do now have this 8 wrench. Okay, I think we got it. So we're idling here. This may be hard to see, but I'm gonna look down into the end of the shaft. See the shaft going around now? This of course would be hooked up to the saw bar, but as it idles back down, it stops, which is just what we want. The clutch is disengaging, so we are good to go. Great.